The new Garmin Approach Z30 rangefinder is a great bit of kit, but I don't think it's for everyone. In fact, I believe the market for this rangefinder is probably really quite small. So stick around to see if you are in that small group of golfers, hit the like button if you find this video helpful, and let's get into it. You might already know, but this is no ordinary rangefinder. It does all the things you'd expect a £380 or $480 rangefinder to do, such as having a vibrating flag lock, a slope reading, and a magnet on the back to attach to your cart. And it does all of those things really well. In fact, let's take a quick look how I got on with it on the course. Right, here we are, we're on the tee box and we're gonna do a side by side with the Garmin against the Bushnell Tour V6. So starting with the Garmin, here we go. We're gonna see how quick it is to lock on and go. Okay, missed it, but that's probably user error. Oh, maybe not, 201, there we go, 201 yards. Now we're gonna try the Bushnell. 3, 2, 1, go. 201. So there we go. They're exactly the same yardages, and we know that I've tested the Bushnell before with a yardstick, so I'm pretty happy with the yardage of the Bushnell. But the Z30 has 3 interesting tricks up its sleeve that I want to share with you. The first one is that if you have a compatible Garmin GPS watch, or you use the Garmin app on your smartphone, then this rangefinder will connect to it via Bluetooth and do some pretty clever stuff that simply no other rangefinder does. When you use the rangefinder to get a precise location to the flag, the display down the viewfinder will not only show the distance to the flag, as well as the slope adjusted distance if you've got that turned on, as per every other rangefinder on the market, but it will also show you the distance to the front and back of the green, which it's getting from your GPS device. Now, I've got to admit, this is a pretty cool feature to use out on the course. I've genuinely found it helpful, and it gave me that little bit more context as to whether the flag was safely in the middle of the green, or whether it's tucked right at the back, or whether it's tucked right at the front. This information certainly isn't essential, as if you've already got a GPS device, you already have those distances on your watch or on the app, and that information is probably enough on its own for the vast majority of golfers. Do you really need to be able to see the distances to the front and the back on the device? No, not really. Is it cool? Yeah, absolutely. But how many golfers do you know that use both a GPS and a rangefinder on the course? Not all that many. I've been using the Z30 with my Garmin S42 watch, and I had to update the watch through the firmware. Now, although that's a relatively straightforward process, it's not something that you can actually do via the Garmin smartphone app. You have to actually download the Garmin Express program onto your computer or your laptop and then plug the watch in via USB. Now, that whole process took around 5 minutes. So if you've already got a Garmin app, you're gonna need to do that update for it to be compatible with the Z30. The second trick the Z30 has up its sleeve is that the rangefinder will also send the distance that it's getting to the flag back to your GPS device. Now, a great benefit of that is that if you are getting a distance from the tee, then this means that you don't actually need to use the rangefinder again for that hole. The distance to the flag will dynamically change on your GPS device as you get closer to the hole. In fact, your GPS device will actually show an arc showing you the distance to the flag and what hazards you might be bringing into play from your location up until that yardage, if you're gonna go a little bit left or right. If you're just using the rangefinder to scan for distances out on the course, perhaps maybe for hazards, rather than actually locking onto a flag, then your GPS device will also show you on the screen the yardages to what it calls your rangefinder hazard. To be honest, I didn't hugely use that feature too much out on the course. Now, if you're using the Z30 with the Garmin smartphone app, which I don't think is particularly likely, I think more golfers are more probably going to be using it with a GPS watch, but you never know. If you are using it in the app, then you also have the benefit of being able to use the Find My Rangefinder feature, which means that if you leave the rangefinder somewhere behind on the course, the app will show you the rangefinder's last known location, which could help you track it down. Although, as the Bluetooth from the rangefinder only connects to your app when you're using the rangefinder, the Bluetooth doesn't just remain on constantly, then the app will only show you the last place that you used the unit. So if the GPS fell out of your bag while you're walking down the fairway, it might not save you. But it will give you a rough idea of where you last used it, so hopefully you'll be able to track it down. The third trick that the Z30 has up its sleeve is that it is IPX7 waterproof. So not only will you have no problems if you get caught out by a rain shower while you're out on the course, but the unit can actually withstand being submerged in up to 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes. Now, I don't think that the vast majority of golfers have been crying out for an IPX7 waterproof rangefinder. I don't know how many are getting damaged and broken beyond repair when someone's accidentally dropping it into a pond or a lake. However, it's good to know that you have got that level of protection should that happen. Shelling out for a, well, let's face it, rather expensive bit of kit because you accidentally dropped it in some water is going to be pretty annoying. So I suppose this unit having that additional waterproof protection that pretty much no other rangefinder has on the market can only be a good thing. Don't forget that if you are a golfer that likes a bit of a bargain on their latest golf gear, make sure you sign up to my free monthly golf deals newsletter where I send out the best deals that I find each month. Links to sign up are down in the description below. From testing the rangefinder out on the course, I've got to say that it does feel nice and compact in the hand while still having enough kind of heft and weight to it so that it feels like a significant bit of kit. When comparing it to the Bushnell Tour V6, which is the latest in the Bushnell range, I've got to say that the Garmin does sit slightly smaller in the hand. It is slightly more compact, but it is a little bit lighter compared to the Bushnell, although there's not too much in it. I think it has a pretty sleek look to it. There's not too many outrageous design elements or choices going on with this rangefinder. The materials feel nice enough. The rubber isn't the most grippiest or sticky rubber in the world, but you know, it's giving you enough traction in there so I'm not worried that I'm gonna drop this rangefinder while I'm using it. You might be able to see on the side here, you've got a little light that indicates Tour. And so when that button is on, that means that you can no longer get the slope reading, and everyone can clearly see that you're not getting the slope reading because that little light is on. And then when you use the rangefinder, simply press the mode button on the top and it turns the slope mode back on and the light goes back off. When you actually look down the rangefinder to use it, you get this red OLED display going over the top of the viewfinder, and it really stands out as being nice and bright and crisp. Now you can actually adjust the brightness using the settings in the rangefinder as well, although I didn't find a need to change them out on the course. It was plenty bright enough for me, even in the lightest dark conditions, just using it straight out of the box. I've got to say, when testing it side by side with the Bushnell as well, I didn't really notice any major differences in terms of the quality of the display or the sharpness of the image. Both were really nice to use. The Garmin also comes with a nice protective case, pretty standard among rangefinders in terms of the size and the design layout, but I'd say that this does look quite nice on the bag. However, just like any device really, there are some potential drawbacks to using the Garmin Z30. First of all, the flag lock feature on the unit only goes up to 400 yards. Now, that's not really that much of a problem, as although many other rangefinders will lock onto a flag from a far greater distance, does it really matter? Well, given that the Garmin Z30 actually has the ability to lock onto a flag and then send that distance to your GPS watch, it would be nice to be able to actually lock onto that flag from every par 4 or even every par 5. It just saves you having to pull out the rangefinder later on down the hole. While out on the course, I did manage to lock onto a flag that was 425 yards away, but I never actually then got the opportunity to test anything any further than that really. And it did struggle a little bit at that distance. So I wouldn't have too much faith in trying to get this to lock onto a flag 450 or 500 yards away. It's probably possible, but it might be a little bit trickier compared to something like the Bushnell V6. That said, if you pull out a rangefinder at 500 yards away, pretty sure your playing partners and other golfers are going to be giving you some pretty funny looks. A slightly bigger annoyance with the unit is actually the speed of using the rangefinder. Most people who use rangefinders love how quickly it is to grab the unit from their bag, quickly lock onto the flag, and then you know the yardage. Simple as that. I'm pleased to say that the flag lock mode on the Garmin does work very well. It works just as well as the Bushnell Tour V6, nice and snappy. However, if you actually want to see the yardages to the front and the back of the green while using the rangefinder, then you have to wait for the unit to connect to your GPS device via Bluetooth. Now, you can tell it's connected once the little Bluetooth logo at the top of the display stops flashing. But to save battery life, the unit will need to reconnect each time you use it. It doesn't stay permanently connected to your GPS. Now, I've got to give props to Garmin. Generally, the Bluetooth connection is very quick. However, it will still slow you down a second or two each time you want to use the device. And when you're used to instant distances when using a rangefinder, well, 1 or 2 seconds could feel like an absolute age. Is the slight wait actually worth the benefit of seeing the distances to the front and back of the green down the viewfinder? Well, for some golfers, it probably is, whereas for others, probably not. So I guess it really depends upon where you fall in that camp. I'd say that if you are a die-hard rangefinder user, it might get in your nerves a little bit. Whereas if you're someone who maybe has never used a rangefinder or is just curious what this could do, then you might actually really like the experience just because you don't know any better. It never slowed me down that much that my playing partners noticed that it was taking a second or two to connect to the watch. So I suppose, again, does it really matter? I do wonder how much the Bluetooth data transfers is going to be eating into the battery life. It's running off of a pretty standard CR2 battery as per the majority of rangefinders, and Garmin say that it's good for 1 year of use. Although of course I haven't been able to test that for myself, this unit's only been out for a few weeks. But I think the biggest problem that Garmin are going to have with the Z30 is actually convincing enough golfers to actually buy it. In isolation, it's a uniquely innovative bit of kit. But when you break down the golfing market, the number of golfers likely to buy this, I think, is probably quite small. If you don't currently own a Garmin GPS and you don't want to use the Garmin app on your phone while you're out on the course, then you should really consider whether another rangefinder might better suit your needs, perhaps for a lot less money as well. Its main competitor is the Bushnell Tour V6 Shift, which costs slightly more, has a 500-yard flag lock instead of a 400-yard flag lock, and uses their proprietary visual jolt technology, which is a nice feature. Using the two side by side, I'd say that the visual quality down the actual viewfinders is about the same. The Bushnell also has the same 6x magnification, but it is only IPX6 waterproof rated, whereas the Garmin is the more impressive IPX7. But a lot of golfers do put a lot of faith in the Bushnell name. So that's going to be a pretty big factor. Some golfers looking to save some money but still go for a premium rangefinder might want to check out something like the ShotScope Pro ZR or the previous Bushnell Tour V5 Shift instead, which are going to be around £100 to £150 cheaper than the Garmin. I suppose one of the benefits with the Garmin is that if you don't already own a compatible Garmin GPS device, then you have got that technology in the unit so that maybe later down the line, you can buy yourself a compatible watch and fully utilize all the features of the unit. But given that those are pretty much the key features of the unit, I don't know how many golfers are going to be willing to do that. Another reason why I think the Z30 might have a bit of a limited audience is because if you are a golfer who already owns and uses a Garmin GPS device, then do you really want to spend another £390 to use a rangefinder that shows you the back and front of the yardages down the viewfinder, which you can already see on your watch? Generally, I'd say that golfers will tend to use either a GPS watch or a rangefinder. Golfers that use both devices out on the course during the same round, I'd say are few and far between. If you don't already own a Garmin compatible GPS, to get the full benefit of the Z30, you're either going to need to spend £200 to £500 on a new GPS unit, or start using the Garmin app on your smartphone while out on the course. And I'm not sure how many golfers really do like using the Garmin app, or any app for that matter, out on the course. Are you going to start using a GPS app on your phone just to get some additional benefits from the rangefinder? However, with all that being said, if you are the type of golfer that actually does see the benefit of owning this device, maybe you already own the Garmin GPS compatible unit and you like the idea of being able to use what is admittedly very cool tech when you're out on the course, then this is a truly unique device and Garmin have got something very, very cool on their hands. I don't necessarily think that this is a game changer and it's going to take a load of Bushnell's market share, but it is really cool and it does work really well. It's just quite a lot of money to get those benefits. So if you can justify that cost, I've got to say it is a pretty good bit of kit. I'd love to hear what you think of the Garmin Z30, and if you are in the market for a new rangefinder, then make sure you watch this video right here where I do a complete breakdown of the Bushnell Tour V6 Shift. This one right here.